My son, Amir Ali.
Awesome. Amir Ali, how
Yes.
are you?
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi. All right.
He's 7 years of
So,
age. He is,
7 years of age.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Going
great.
to
So
catch up.
we've got a very young participant too. Um,
Yes.
even younger than Madonna, right? Madonna, he's
Much, much younger, I'm sorry to say.
okay. Now, okay, let me first thank Madonna Stinson, Professor Madonna Stinson, Professor John O'Toole, and Professor Manfred Schewe, who accepted to be with us today, and also all my esteemed friends from everywhere, professors, researchers, and also teachers from everywhere in the world. And also let me thank coronavirus, because I think it was the coronavirus which made me think that actually we share and care more than we thought we did. And I think this, to me, myself personally, coronavirus showed me that world will be a better place if we care more about people everywhere in the world. And I started contacting Professor Krashin, and we started with him all the webinars, and then we had webinars with Professor Chomsky. We had a seminar with Professor Manfred, and now we have Madonna with us today on drama and education. And Professor Manfred has kindly accepted to chair this meeting, so I should thank him especially. Um, and just one very important message, Madonna and everyone. Actually, the intention is to connect people from everywhere in the world with each other, because there are millions of people in the world who deserve top-notch education, but they don't have access to the best quality education you are offering. So this is one way of trying to connect people together, because this way I think we are removing borders and we are all together. So with this much introduction, it's over to Manfred to tell us a little about Madonna, and then the floor will be Madonna's.
Thank you very much, Ami, and congratulations on pioneering such an initiative. It's wonderful to see so many colleagues who are passionate about education and especially active learning methodologies, and to connect is a wonderful idea. So great to see you, Madonna, today, and I see John there as well from Australia.
Yeah.
So Australia is well represented here today. So Madonna's work doesn't need really an introduction, so I'll keep it quite short as well, because she has a lot to say, I'm sure. We won't take away from her time too much. So Madonna, just to say, was in Cork in 2017 and gave a wonderful keynote here on drama and education, and it left quite a mark here, so it can still be seen online as well on our web pages. But today she is in this forum here, and Madonna is very well known as a researcher, as a practitioner, and has been very influential in the educational landscape in Australia and far beyond Australia, obviously, and has been involved in large research projects. And so she has edited so many volumes, is represented on editorial boards. So I could go on, and the list is very long. But I think the best is that you familiarize yourselves with her biodata on her website. There's a lot of detailed information and highly interesting information, and that's also then a way to connect. But now it's the time for Madonna to tell everybody about her views on drama and education. I'm very much looking forward, like everyone else, and I wish everyone a wonderful session today, and we'll have a little discussion afterwards. I understand, and Amir is very versatile regarding the technicalities of that. I'm not too good at that, so we will go ahead now, Madonna. You are very welcome to start.
Thank you, Manfred. I'll probably stop blushing in a little while. It's quite hard to sit here and hear people say nice things about you, isn't it? So thank you very much for that warm welcome. I hope that the presentation I've prepared tonight is going to be of interest to you. So I'll just pull up and try and share my screen, if you don't mind, because I've prepared a PowerPoint to remind me of what I'm talking about and to keep me on track. So can you see that screen clearly?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm just starting with this image, which will be familiar. I think Manfred's seen it before and be familiar to John, because it's an image from a classroom and a project that John and I worked on in a primary school in Brisbane. And I love it. I almost want to carry it in my pocket with me all the time, because you can see the engagement and the passion and the enjoyment that is in every fiber of these young people's bodies as they participate in a process drama. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it as the evening progresses, but I wanted to share this lovely energy and excitement with you to begin the session. I'm going to kind of talk about my research trajectory, really, in the use of drama to teach language. And so I'm going to talk in the main about 4 projects: drama and oral language from Singapore, speaking out also from Singapore, the Treasure of Trivandrum, which was the one that little image came from, and the most recent one, which is just newly published, the case study 4 in the Y Connect project. So I'm probably going to go through these quite quickly because there's a lot to cover, but I'll try and make sense as we do. Please stop me if I'm not making sense, because that's quite possible too. All right. This is the way that I tend to work is mostly in the form that we call process drama, where the students and the teachers all participate together in role. We work through developing stories, developing narratives and interactions, so that the drama is created in the moment by moment interactions of the participants. And I was given some funding to try and develop oral language in particular in Singapore with some secondary 4 students about 15, 16 years of age. And this is the overview of the plan that we worked with. It was 10 weeks work. In the first week, we just got to know the students, played some games. In session 2, we did the Missing Girl drama. The session 3, we did part 1 of a Lost Civilizations drama, followed in the next session by the part 2. Sessions 5 and 6 were spy drama. Session 7, 8, and 9 were the Legend of Bukit Merah drama. And these have been published so you can see them. But it was 10 weeks of work with these young people, and each session lasted probably about 2 hours. What I thought, rather than concentrating on the actual research, I'd concentrate on my learnings in particular as a result of the research. I think it's very important that when we undertake research that we actually find out things that we didn't know when we start the research process. So I will concentrate on my learnings. But for the drama and oral language, we were working within this language framework that was provided by the Education Department in Singapore. So language for information, language for social interaction, and language for literary response and expression. So rather than separate them out, we tried to incorporate them in an interwoven way in the process dramas over the 10 weeks of the research. This is how we tried to do it. So in the Missing Girl drama, the language for information relates to events that happened to the missing girl, to the lived experience of the participants, of the students. They did language of social interaction through interviewing, roles in hot seats, and through planning a sequence of events. And they did, they engaged with literature and expression by discussion and interpretation of the pretext. And each of the dramas followed the same sort of structure, involving language for information, language for social interaction, and language for literature interpretation and expression. And you can see how each of them does so. And the spy drama, for example, language for information, each of the students had to go through immigration at the airport and were interrogated and asked a lot of questions by the officers who were on duty at immigration. So they had to provide specific information to those officers. And then they had to plan stories and back information to their roles. So this is how we tied into what the Ministry of Education was hoping we were doing. The 10 weeks of research was very productive and very telling. We were lucky because we also had some comparison groups, some control groups, if you like, students from the same schools and the same study groups, but who did not participate in the drama. And each group, the drama group and the control groups, participated in pre and post testing. And what was interesting was that there was certainly statistically significant improvement in the students' oral language in each one of the 5 criteria that the Ministry of Education had. I'm not going to go into details of that because that's been published and you can read it as you wish. But what I learned as a facilitator of drama in this process was how very important it was to mix up the groups. In Singapore, there are 4 official languages: English, Mandarin, Tamil, and Malay. And students working in their family, their mother tongue language, would rarely have opportunities to learn other of the common languages in Singapore. And while English is the language of instruction, a lot of the students in the groups that I was working with had failed to learn English successfully enough to engage in schooling. So English, while English was their only common language, it was very important to mix up the groups so that they had to work in English and they couldn't work with their friends in their mother tongue. So they were forced to use English for the interactions. And that developed a good range of language skills. The next thing that I learned was how important it is to make sure that when you're working in a long-term project of 10 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever, with students, how it was very important to build the drama complexity, the art form engagement from one drama to the next, alongside, of course, building the language complexity. So that's that notion of working with the art form of drama and the language learning going hand in hand and building up in complexity moment by moment and week by week was very important. It also was important for me to understand the form of process drama and the constraints that it placed upon us, and also the form of time, the other constraints that we had within the school. A very powerful learning from this project was how very important it was to have a period of reflection at the end of every lesson, so that the students and the facilitators all had the opportunity to identify what they had learned, both in terms of the drama and also in terms of language, what they had the opportunity to do. Students were surprised by how much language they had. Very often when we're trying to communicate with people in other language groups, we lack confidence in doing so. And what happened within the drama, because of the tension and the engagement that drama brings into the room, students were engaging far more than they thought they were capable of, and they brought into the space a lot more language than they recognized that they had already developed. So this notion of accessing a mental dictionary where they have a lot of hidden vocabulary, the drama process seemed to allow them to access that mental dictionary and bring their language to the foreground. Okay, so the next study that came out of Speaking Out, one of the principals in the school, one of the schools, the Drama and Oral Language Project took place in 4 different schools, and one of the principals was very keen to have the project continue in her school. So she invited me to work with her teachers for a whole year, which was an amazing gift. So what we did was I had a team of assistants working with me, and we worked with all of the year 8 and 9 teachers in a co-planning and co-teaching and mentoring model, as we worked with them in professional development to teach English and also to teach it English through drama. The project had some unexpected challenges, as you might imagine, undertaking a project that is in a school. Schools are very complex and dynamic places. There are changes of staff, there are all sorts of things that happened, and it threw up some unexpected challenges, certainly throughout the year. But again, some quite strong learnings for me as the year progressed, and for us as a research team. One of the things that came out very prominently was how important it was to have the teachers committed to teaching drama and through the form of process drama, rather than just undertaking the job of teaching English by using drama as a few exercises that they would do for fun or to enliven the classroom on some occasions. It was very important for the students' learning to have the teachers committed to using the art form of drama. And therefore, it was also important that the teachers developed their own artistry, because when teachers themselves were keen on the art form of drama and working in an artistic way alongside the students, then the learning was much enhanced. The students loved it when the teachers stepped out of their teacher persona for a moment and stepped into teacher in role in any of the dramas. And the thing that they loved about it was that allowed a shift in the traditional status of teacher being the dominant, the know-it-all, the answerer of all the questions. Because sometimes when the teacher stepped into role, they were the person who needed help. They were the person who didn't have the answers to the questions, and the students became the experts. So they loved it for those 2 reasons. One is that allowed the teacher to step out of the authoritarian role that they were familiar with, but also that the students felt as though they were had some power and authority. It became very apparent that the teacher in a drama and language classroom has a very important role as a modeler of language and a scaffolder of language, selecting vocabulary, selecting registers, and using them in very carefully considered ways to enhance the learning of the students. And students became really alert to this notion of change in language register. They criticized each other and the teacher for not having, for example, in one story that was created, one of the students took on the role of being a captain of a ship and going on a voyage of discovery. And the students in the reflection were able to say, no, what was wrong with that was when so-and-so, the student in role, used slang, because a captain is an important person and they would never use language like that. So they became very alert to the nuances of changes in register. The other thing that I was a little bit surprised about in this research was how unhelpful games were, language games and drama games were, in the actual teaching and learning of language. They might be helpful to get people up and moving. They might be helpful to get the energy in the room. But in fact, the lessons that focused on games, we found the students disengaged from the language learning. They participated in the games actively, but they weren't very helpful. It was much more productive to work in role and use the conventions of drama than it was to participate in a range of language games. The third study, I hope I'm not overwhelming you with lots and lots of things. I'm trying to leave plenty of time at the end too. The Treasure of Trivandrum story is the one that I was talking about earlier that John and I developed with this particular Year 4 class in a Brisbane primary school. So I was invited to go into the school and work with the grade 4s because the teachers there were concerned that the children were reticent to speak, that they had very low levels of oral language. And so I invited John to come along with me, and in we went. We developed one process drama, the Trivandrum process drama, and we worked with the students in 3 weeks to develop the drama with students in role and teacher in role. We probably should say that thank you to John's wife, Robbie, who found the most wonderful pretext story for the Trivandrum drama, because she was reading in the newspaper about a temple in Kerala where a treasure trove had been discovered. And that became the starting point for our drama. What to do with the treasure? Was the temple cursed? There were a whole lot of things in the newspaper article that became very important to us. The project went for 3 weeks. And there you can see that, if you can see in the middle there, that's John in role talking to the students in the classroom as we started to prepare the drama itself. We worked through a range of linguistic skills, functional skills, of giving information and being formed, negotiating, imagining, feeling and controlling. And in particular, we wanted the students to see the nuance of subtext and manage those. We developed dialogical skills of listening, responding, turn-taking, leading and narrating. We developed linguistic skills of vocal control, diction, vocabulary, etc. Grammar and syntax, register, colour and public address. and the non-verbal skills too, the paralanguage, using the body to communicate through proxemics, through modulation, tempo, and energy, and not forgetting the importance of silence in language. The story of the Treasure of Trivandrum was one that became the students became very passionate about. They really started to care about this community in India and what would happen to the treasure. We put them into role as journalists, and they interviewed the Maharaja and a range of people in the town. Of course, they were teacher in role, to find out the truth of the story, about how to make decisions about what to do with this treasure, which from memory was worth $18 billion in American US dollars. One of the things that I should have mentioned, but one of the things that really drove this engagement and interest from the students was the fact that the story was true. So there really was a temple in India where this treasure had been discovered. It really was a dilemma for the community about what to do. Who owned the treasure? Was it the Maharaja? Was it the monks in the temple? Was it the people of the town? Was it the politicians who actually wanted to take the money to be used for community works? So they were participating in a drama and creating a whole story in Australia, but they were also watching the internet and watching the news to see what was being decided in India at the same time. And there's some other photos of the kids engaging in dramatic learning. What I learned a lot from Trivandrum drama was how very quickly the students developed a great deal of intercultural sensitivity. They were concerned about the people from Trivandrum and the whole society and all the levels of society. And they were conscious, because it was a real story and a true story, that they needed to deal with their understanding of the story in a very socially and culturally sensitive way. They often reminded each other about, was that a respectful way of asking those questions, for example. One of the other things that became very important was the parents reported to us how much more family conversation there was and community conversation there was when they went home from school. So school and learning didn't stop at the school door. It went home with the children. It became part of the dinner table conversation. And they were very proud to go home and start talking about what they had learned at school during the day. Unlike most times when you say to your children, how was school today? And they go, oh, it was all right. What did you do? Nothing. You know, they were going home and talking for a long time about all of the things they had done at school and brought their family into that conversation. We did try and use some local language, some local terminology, and we made sure that the children all had Indian names, Hindu names, and they got a real sensuous enjoyment out of the unusual language and getting the punctuation and the pronunciation correct. We found that through the deep engagement, the students took hold of agency in their own work and developed a great deal of confidence, and each lesson began to take more and more risks as they became confident language users. One of the things that we decided at the end of that research was how important it is for us to develop a assessment recording instrument, particularly for oral language through drama processes, a way that is able to help us record the dual learning that's taking place, the drama learning and the language learning. If you would like to go follow this link when I've finished, I'll leave it with you. You can find the full lesson plans. You can find videos of the children at work. You can find videos of the teacher in role. There's a great deal of information that from that particular project that is now available on the Arts Pop website. And that's because a year after John and I did the work for the first time at the school, we were invited to go back and develop the materials to be used as resources for the Australian curriculum, which was newly published at around about that time. So all the lesson plans and resources for it are all available at that website. And the final project that I wanted to mention is one that we've just finished, a project as part of what is called the Y Connect project, and you can see the link here. Y Connect was a very large project, a 3-year-long project in one secondary school in Brisbane, where we worked with artists in curriculum classes right across the school. So, for example, we had choreographers working in maths classes, teaching maths concepts, mathematical concepts through dance. We had actors coming in and working in English classes. We had musicians working with music classes and so on. But one of the cases, case study 4 in that large project, was one that I was responsible for, and it was for the essential English classes in the high school. Now, essential English was a transition subject, and students who were taken into essential English classes came from a very first stage language school in Brisbane before they went into mainstream high school classes, but they needed some more English help before they could participate well in regular English classes. This school is a highly multicultural school. It has over 70% of the school population comes from something like 64 different countries. And many of the students who are enrolled in this government school are refugee and asylum-seeking young people. So the essential English classes lasted for only half a year as the students came in from Milperra, which was their first language school in Brisbane, and then they came to this class for 6 months before they transitioned into regular classes in the high school. So I went in as the teaching artist for those English classes every Thursday morning for an hour, and we had 3 different blocks of 6 months with 3 different groups. So from January till the middle of 1 year was one group of students, then they transitioned into regular schooling, and in July to December was a second group of students. So we worked through the same ideas 3 times, and the aim was to develop materials that the teachers in the school could use after I was not there or the teaching artists were not there. So it had to fit in with the school-based timetable and also the school-based assessments. So we had some particular challenges with that. The timing, I had to make sure that I was available. I didn't have lectures at the university, so I was in there every Thursday morning from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. to teach the class. We had quite erratic attendance with the students. They came in having absolutely no idea about drama at all, and many of them started the class thinking that it was stupid to try and learn English through drama, and why should we do this silly stuff? There was a great deal of diversity in the group, language diversity, ethnic diversity, and social diversity. And so there was one of the big barriers in the first case was to encourage the students to participate at all. They weren't used to participating on their feet and in dramatic context at all. So what we did was to organise the work that we were doing under two themes. The first theme was what is strength, and that lasted for 10 weeks. And the second theme was what is belonging, and that also lasted for 10 weeks. And these themes were suggested by the school because the young people came in feeling as though they weren't strong. They felt quite weak. Many of them had been living in refugee camps, and they also had sometimes not very socially acceptable ways of showing that they were strong. So we tried to explore the notions of what makes us a strong person through drama as well. Belonging was a deliberate attempt to try and build a sense of community, of a democratic and collaborative community in the classroom, in the hope that that would transfer out into the school community. So our planning went through lots of scaffolding and incremental challenges in the first unit. First of all, I had to do a lot of work establishing processes for working individually in pairs and in groups. I remember one group that I worked with was particularly challenging, and it took me 6 weeks before I could get them to work in pairs. They were just really resistant to any way of communicating or working in pairs. We tried to get them to access those mental dictionaries. Many of these young people spoke 5 or 6 languages. They were just not very proficient in English. We tried to work with artistry in the planning and delivery of the lessons. The focus in that first section for 10 weeks was on oral language and also social and emotional learning, so that they were working in groups, in pairs, and were encouraged to participate, but also learned to encourage each other. And we built in that important reflection time that I'd learned about in that very first project I'd done. We did lots and lots of activities and exercises throughout the 10 weeks, and we culminated in the last week in a process drama based on a picture storybook, and the details are there. Similarly, the second unit built on what had happened before, but added more complexity and was more challenging in participation for the students. The culmination of that was a process drama where the class went on an imaginary science excursion to an island and were caught in a cyclone. And then, of course, we handed out roll cards, and some students were injured, some students were rescuers. They had different roles to play. So what did I learn from this last one that I've been working with most recently? Once the young people were accepting of this drama as a different way of working, they completely embraced it, and really were so excited on every Thursday to have a drama class. One student, even in the interviews, talked about that she had learned a dramatic language. And when we questioned and said, what do you mean by dramatic language? She said, well, it's where you talk and you act at the same time. It's all interwoven. So she tried to create a new term to explain what it was. The children found the work novel and challenging, and they particularly in those in the moment responses, but they loved this different way of working. They embraced that active and embodied learning, and told us in interviews that by taking on roles as other people, they learned something about themselves. They were able to explore aspects of their own identity by stepping into the shoes of other people. They found that drama what was important to them was how drama involved acts of imagination. This was a thing about the process drama on the island. I saw the acting and I saw the different things, like the big ocean, the shark. It was interesting. It was really magical. Many of the students talked about how in their imagination they felt they were actually on the island in the forest, and they could see and feel things as though they were there. And they thought that was really important was that they had permission to pretend and to participate in that pretending. Again, I was reminded how important it is to take the language learning and the drama learning in very small and incremental steps. And with these very different groups each time, how I would have to modify the lesson and modify my plans in response to the student needs on a day-to-day basis. I think the last time I was here in this discussion group with you, somebody asked a question about the affective filter hypothesis. So what was interesting to me was that, again, in interviews, one of the students spoke and said that she felt that drama lowered the fence to learning, lowered that barrier that was the fence between the student and the learning, and that drama had done that for her. And students talked about how they felt safe to take risks, how they developed confidence in speaking, how they liked the way the classroom was established with equal relationships between the teacher and the students, and also between students and students, and that the classroom was based in teamwork. This is my last slide, and I just loved this little extract from an interview with a group of students where we were talking about, well, what does it mean to have drama in your English language class? And one student said, drama is like a story for life, right? And I said, a story for life? That's wonderful. The student tried to explain, it's a story for life, what you do for your life, what you do, like existing history, like, and another student chimed in, like what happened to you. So because they were able to draw on their own life experience and bring it into the classroom and relive and recreate events from their lives, it's their existing history. And so drama for them became a story for their lives. So that's it from me. I've got that's where all the information from the different projects are published. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's a lot of information.
We certainly did. Yeah, we certainly did. So,
Sorry,
Manfred, yeah, please go ahead, Manfred. Yes.
Can I speak away? Yeah. Can
Please,
everyone
please.
hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madonna, for taking us on this exciting journey into process drama and taking us into the various contexts in which you have been working. So in the world of language teaching and learning, we hear more and more from neuroscientists, and the neuroscientists say that all of us who are together here in this online conference and all the people in the world have two things in common. They want to belong and they want to grow. And it was interesting to see that you explicitly focus on belonging, so making the students aware of their contexts. So where do I belong? And then obviously your focus was very much on growth, on personality growth, but also obviously on the fact that, you assisted them to grow in the language. And I was very impressed by the nuanced way in which you analyzed also the progress they made during the practice in the schools. So I'll leave it at that and open the discussion. And Amir is the technological wizard and knows which button to press, whose turn it is, and all of that.
Far from me. Professor Stinson, Madonna, it was so inspiring. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Amir.
I mean, people were sending messages while you were talking, telling me that they are getting inspired and they have lots of ideas. And here I would also like to invite Professor O'Toole, because I got interested in drama and education almost about 10 years ago, and I read lots of papers and books. And in many of them, I saw Professor O'Toole's name. So I always wanted to see Professor O'Toole and talk to him. And we have him here with us now.
We're very lucky.
Professor O'Toole, yeah.
Thank you very much. I shouldn't take up much time. I'm sure your other guests have got very important questions to ask Madonna. I'd just like to add a couple of things to what Madonna has said, particularly as she was kind enough to talk about a project we did together, which exemplifies what I want to add. It was the Treasure of Trivandrum project, and in a way to the Y Connect, the last one she was talking about, illustrate for me something that's actually much more important than teaching language. Quite clear in Treasure of Trivandrum was an enormous amount of very specific language teaching, and that was important, and that was the reason we were in the school. And there was also a fair bit of cultural geography happened to be taught, because there was one kid who'd been to India, but might even have been Indian, I think, in 1 year, but none of the other children either knew or cared anything about India before the lessons. So there was some good curriculum knowledge gone, but for me, those things she's been talking about exemplify that when you're doing drama, when you're using drama as a pedagogy, you're doing something much more important than just teaching subject matter. You are, as she indirectly said, you're actually involved in a pedagogy that's empowering. I'll explain just what I mean in a moment. That is empowering the kids in really specific ways, and it's a pedagogy about social justice. For instance, the Treasure of Trivandrum drama, we managed to turn it so that the kids wanted to spend the money on trying to help child labor in India, trying to stop child labor in India, which is one of the social justice problems across India. And we managed to sort of pull the rug from under the children's feet, largely by getting Madonna in role as an 8-year-old 8-year-old child labourer. I think you worked in a sweet factory, didn't you? If I remember.
I did. I did. And at first the children thought that was a really good idea until I talked about the conditions I was working in, and they changed their mind, especially when I told them that I so wanted to go to school and I wasn't allowed to.
So they were getting these kind of really important basic learnings about social justice in the wider world, but a little bit of extra social justice was happening in the classroom, because by putting herself in the role of an 8-year-old child, although she was still leading the conversation, Madonna was giving the children an enormous amount of responsibility, language responsibility and thinking responsibility, to drive the lesson, so that all these things were happening simultaneously, which are characteristics of all good drama. That it was a genuine dialogue. It wasn't a teacher telling kids what they need to know, or what the teacher thinks they need to know, which is the sort of rubbish that most schools spend most of our time doing. It was about opening up questions, real questions to which we were not giving them answers. You raised that question about the Madonna, the vital drama question of what if. That's the most important question, where we can reimagine the world, giving the children the opportunity not just to take the world as it is, but to say, what if it wasn't? What if it was different? What could we do about it? Which again leads back to that whole social justice thing. And as you said, it's risk-taking. It allows the children, within the safety of the drama, because there are going to be no consequences after the drama, it allows the children to take enormous risks, intellectual risks. So I'm sorry, I think I've talked much too much already, but I just wanted to add what to me is
beautiful.
The curricular knowledge is an absolute drop in the ocean of what the kids are getting in drama.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, Professor O'Toole. All right. Now, let's see if there are any questions from the crowd. Otherwise, I have probably 15 questions for you.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Let's see if there are any questions. Guys, if you've got any questions, you can just turn on your microphone so we know you have questions and you can go ahead. Do we see anyone wanting to ask a question yet? All right. So,
Hi, Mark.
Anastasia, is that you?
Yes, it's Anastasia.
Yeah. Anastasia,
Hello.
please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. I'm saying hello to Professor Stinson, Professor Schewe, Professor O'Toole, and thank you for the beautiful and very useful lecture. So there is this question for me. If I'm not mistaken, there are like 2 ways to engage students in language learning through a drama. One is done in the course of one session, a short-term project done to practice the material taught in that very session, with more focus on form, and I think it's more impromptu and spontaneous. And the other is a long-term project done more professionally, with less attention, with less conscious attention on form. And in the second one, there is this need for technicality and artistry. And so the first one is a short-term project done in the course of one session. It could be just a role, having roles, and it's nothing really serious. And the second one is more professional and more artistic. So which one do you think is more practical, and which one do you think is more beneficial for language learning? Which do you suggest that teachers focus on? Thank you in advance.
I'm going to try and have a go at answering that. One of the things that all 4 of the projects that I talked about brought to the foreground as being very important was that notion of the teacher working with artistry. So that must happen for using drama in language learning or using drama for any purpose whatsoever, that it's very important that the teacher plans and implements that plan with artistry. So one of the challenges that we faced in the second project I was talking about was some of the teachers in the school weren't particularly interested in working artistically. They wanted to have some exercises, some games, some things that they could do quickly in those one-off sessions. Perhaps that's the sort of thing you mean. But the people who had the biggest impact on the students' learning were the people who decided to try and develop their own artistry as a teacher and worked in an artistic way, even if they were only doing it for 5 or 10 minutes within a single lesson. The whole lesson doesn't have to be drama. You might want to work in teacher in role just for a short period of time, or you might want to work with hot seating a character just for a short period of time. But what is important is that the artistry, the drama artistry and the language learning happen together, and they must go hand in hand. I'm not sure whether that's answered your question or not, but I don't think that there are necessarily just two models. I think you can use drama for 5 minutes in a lesson, or you can use it for the whole lesson, and that lesson might start again the next day and go on and on over a period of time. So it's not the matter of the time that matters, it's how you approach it. And I would encourage people to approach it with artistry.
Thank you. I understand and perfectly said. Thank you so much.
Madonna, I think something related to what Anastasia said and her concern is this anecdote of me myself. When I was back from Australia, when I was in Iran almost in 2016, so one of the messages I was trying to communicate to my colleagues in Iran was the incorporation of drama in education. And actually someone who really embraced it is Marissa, who's already here with us. She's actually listening, and maybe she's the next one to ask questions.
Hello, Marissa.
Most of the Marissa, why don't you speak up? So one of the things people were a little concerned about teachers, they were saying that we don't have any dramatic skills. We don't know how to embrace and how to do it in our classes. We are English language teachers. We don't know how to do it. I mean, do you have any message for teachers who think that they need a lot of artistry to incorporate drama?
I think, well, one of the ways that I learned to teach drama was by reading books by really good people like John O'Toole that had examples of practice. And, you know, there are so many more, you know, I'm very old, so in the day when I started, there wasn't so much material available to me, but nowadays there's lots and lots of samples of really very high quality work available. So there's the stuff that, you know, Manfred's published a lot of wonderful things in Ireland, and particularly people can go to Scenario. John has a huge number of books, including books with very detailed lesson plans that step them out. And I think one of the ways that that I learned was by reading the lesson plans and thinking, well, I could try and do maybe that small bit, and then I'd try it out with my class, and you grow in confidence and you grow in skill by actually doing it. But there are plenty of examples. Nobody is an expert when they start off with, it's like riding a bicycle. When you get up the first few times, sometimes you can pedal and you can get to the end of the road, but sometimes you trip and you fall off. So that may happen. It's a matter of taking a small step and and making, doing what you feel comfortable with in small ways.
If I can just add a tiny bit to that, a little postscript to that, in the Treasure of Trivandrum, the class teacher, the year 4 normal class teacher, watched us teaching the first year, and she'd never done any drama before in her life. She'd kind of been interested in it, but she bravely volunteered when we said we'd like to come back and do it again for this resource package, for just the kind of thing that Madonna's been describing. And she agreed to be the teacher. She had never taught drama in her life. So we made sure that she had a raft of secure safety net of even one of her characters in role had a clipboard, which was an important part of her role, but actually it had written down on it all the things that she needed to tell the children. So she was absolutely petrified when she started, but she was very brave. She ended up doing 5, I think the second time around we did it in 5 sessions of an hour and a half each. She taught it absolutely marvelously, and it's all there. You can see her you can actually see her on the screen if you look at the stuff. And so what it actually takes, it takes the support of the kind of resources that Madonna's been talking about. Go and find the lesson plans and the suggestions, and a hell of a lot of bravery to take that first step. Be brave enough to do it. Be brave enough to take the risk with your children. Be vulnerable, because this is, I think, the most frightening thing for many teachers, is that you are going to be made to be vulnerable. And but within 5 minutes of doing it, particularly if you have a go at being teacher in role, you'll discover that they take it for granted. They're much more used to playing than you are, and they're better at it anyway, so they expect to do it. And as Madonna says, when they're used to it, it's fine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt or take over.
No, thank you.
Can I just say, one of John's point about trying it out, one of the important things, I think I mentioned it with one of the studies, is how much the students loved the teacher trying out teacher in role. And they actually love it when you say, I'm going to try out this teacher in role, so help me along. You can help me so that I look good. And they actually quite enjoy, doing that to help the teacher get through those nervous moments.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes, Manfred, please.
Yeah, just to add to the conversation, I usually use a graphic representation on which you see on the one side teacher, on the other the artist, and I'm talking very much of a continuum. So it's very different for teachers. I mean, where do they start? Where do they stand? At what point in their biography, so to speak? So a new teacher might not have had any, or might not have had much contact with the arts, and so is basically the teacher. So what needs to happen is to open up a new teacher, or the person who is new to drama teaching, to an appreciation of the arts. So the question then remains, how can that be done? Obviously, it would help, let's say, for any teacher to, let's say, go to the theater and see a play, and then see, is there an element in the play which I could possibly use in my own teaching? So was there, for example, something in that particular play like alter ego and so on? Could I possibly use that in my conversation context and so on? So the big context here is, and it's probably also culturally specific and very different from country to country, what value is played on the arts? How much are teachers sensitized towards the arts, basically. So in the schools, so do music, theater, etc., play an important role. Obviously, a language teacher can obviously get in touch with a music teacher or a theater teacher if these teachers are in a school, and also learn from them. So I could go on about this. So this is the broader context. So ultimately, what would be desirable to arrive at specific trainings for language teachers in which they learn, sort of, for example, in intensive courses or so, or maybe over a year or two, how to actually employ the methodology. And I'm sure Madonna and John have been involved in that side of things very much in Australia and their contexts. And so obviously that's the ideal scenario. If you do a course, learn it from scratch.
Definitely. And having said that, Professor Manfred, I think we should draw distinction between theater and education, as I've learned from papers and books, theater in education and drama in education. And I found the differences quite important, because some teachers thought that the actual performance has to be in front of an audience. Whereas, to my understanding, drama doesn't need any audience, does not need that much of artistic ability. Am I right?
Are you asking me, Amir? I can try.
Or I could ask you. Yeah,
Yeah.
please. Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Okay. Terminology is always a tricky territory. And again, so, it depends on the various contexts people work in. So more recently, I was involved in a project which is called the International Glossary Project. What we are trying to do is, if somebody in Austria uses a certain specific term, does somebody in the United Kingdom understand what he's on about, and so on. So, I mean, if in Great Britain you talk of theater and education, I mean, what springs to mind for me is that you perform, so teacher actors perform a play in schools. So it's a performance for the kids in the schools, and then maybe there are workshops afterwards and so on. And drama in education was used, I guess, is used to emphasize more the process side of things. But then this discussion about process and product has been going on for many years. But I'm a friend of a position of a continuum. So what is a process obviously can become a product, and when you work on a product on a performance, even I mean, obviously a process is involved. Sorry, John, you wanted to come in.
Thank you. I just want to, I agree with you. It is a continuum, and that's why that I think the whole question of is it drama or is it theatre is a real red herring. We are using the art form of drama. But what's much more important is deciding as you put your finger on it, whether there's an audience or not. Some drama happens and can only happen without an external audience, because because we're interested in finding out what is happening to these people now. It's a pretend play, which is the kind of drama that Madonna's been mostly talking about, the process drama, and any kind of outside audience is likely to, first of all, freeze the children, probably freeze the teacher too, and focus on things that are completely irrelevant to what they're learning in that drama. However, there are times, of course, when part of drama is performing, and you do want them to be aware of the public language skills, of the ability to speak and move and make meaning by being an actor. And that may happen in a process drama too. At one point in the Trivandrum drama, the children all created a ritual with some beautiful dance work and a lot of lovely acting to, I think I can't remember, we were praying to the god Vishnu or something for some reason. And so you do need that. There is no, as Manfred says, there's no, it's a continuum. But don't think about, is it drama or is it theatre? Think about, do we need an audience and what are we trying to do? Are what we're trying to do necessary to have other people watching us doing it? If so, then call it theatre if you like. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't, again.
Thank you. No, thank you. It was great. Thank you. Anastasia, your microphone is on. Did you want to ask other questions? Or Marisa, I introduced you already, but you haven't talked. Anastasia, Marisa.
Hi.
No, I'm
Marisa,
done.
is that you?
Yes,
I'm carrying
it's me.
now.
Go ahead, please. Okay.
So, can I talk?
Yes.
Please go ahead, please.
Hi there. This is Marisa. I just wanted to say thank you, and this is wonderful listening to your notions and embracing them. I'm so happy to work with IZ, and I have enjoyed every minute of this session. Thanks a million.
Oh, thanks,
And
Marissa.
I'm
That's lovely.
sure that you'll hear great news from IZ on drama and education in near future.
I'm sure I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is actually the girl who just talked, Marisa, is the only person who passionately embraced drama and education almost 4 years ago. And she's been wonderful. I mean, she's the creative wheel of the whole thing, the whole system in IZ Education Center. I've got also a question to ask John. Guys, there's a very, very fundamental book which is called A Giant at the Door, written by John O'Toole and also Madonna Stinson. John, will you please tell us what is this giant or who is this giant? Could you tell us about this giant? Your microphone is off, sir. John, your microphone.
Yeah, sure. Very briefly.
Okay.
The Giant at the Door is drama, and it's we're using the image of the Greek giant or titan Proteus, who was able to change his shape in order to create magic and do things in the world. It's the ancient Greek legends. And it struck us as a good metaphor for what drama tries to do in classrooms. But it's also, the giant is usually at the door. And in Iran now, the giant Proteus is knocking at the door through you and Marisa and your colleagues there. At the moment, it hasn't got very far, the door being the house of curriculum. That big, solid stone block that is what kids get taught in schools. And for just to, I hope, cheer you up at the end of this session, 45 years ago, Madonna and I were, both of us, involved in starting the Queensland Drama Education Association. And we were two of a very small group of people who are doing it. The word drama did not appear in any curriculum documents whatever. We were thought of as really a bit peculiar. It was better in some states in Australia, but this is our state, and there was nobody there. So we were a very tiny giant, and we've been changing our shape all the way through, trying to wriggle through the door of curriculum. And in 2012, we got drama embedded into the Australian curriculum as part of a compulsory subject area called the arts, including dance, drama, media arts, music, and visual arts, in that order alphabetically. And drama is now an entitlement for all Australian children. And
wow.
So in Australia, Proteus has at least got into the hallway anyway, and got into the classroom. And it's by changing shapes. You're going to have to change your shapes so many times and change your arguments so many times. Yeah. I hope you're as successful as we've been.
Yeah, I hope so too. So I hope this giant is growing bigger now, right?
Can I just?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, can I just check with you, John and Madonna? Does that apply to all levels of education, primary, secondary?
Yes.
Well, yes and no.
It's
I can. Sorry, Madonna. Just very specifically, all children are entitled to drama throughout the primary years, as one of all five. They're entitled to all 5 art forms. Mind you, the reality and the rhetoric are still a long way apart. Not every school manages to teach drama yet, but primary school. In the secondary school, they have to have the availability to take it. So it has to be one of the optional subjects that children can take right through the secondary school. And in nearly every state, it's a full university entrance subject as well.
Right.
So it is actually growing, particularly in primary school, and we're finding more and more primary drama specialists. Schools are employing people to come in and work alongside the classroom teacher and teach through drama in many primary schools. Yeah.
I think that's a
Beautiful,
interesting thing to look at in the international context. I suppose there are differences between European countries. And in Ireland, I think now drama plays more of a role at primary level. In Germany, I think you have drama now as a school subject on the same level as music and visual art in all the different counties, so which is encouraging. And then other European countries are trying to get to that point as well. So that discussion internationally is ongoing, I guess.
Yeah.
great. Actually, I'm aware of time in Australia. It's nearly 10:15, is it?
That's
Madonna?
right. That's right.
We don't want to keep you forever, but someone has a question, and there's a story I need to tell you before Mason asks his question. Do we have 2 or 3 minutes, Madonna, John,
Sure,
Manfred?
of course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, when Marissa introduced the idea of using drama in school in IZ Education Center here in Iran, some people rejected and opposed. One of them was a boy called Mason. He's a teacher. He's been a teacher, one of the best teachers in our language.
Hello?
I've just lost your sound, Amir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cut. Poor connection, I think.
Connection. Okay.
Do we know what Mason wants to ask?
Yes.
Yeah, he was talking about me.
Okay, Mason, how are you? He's telling the story of you.
So we could ask you questions now. What do you think will he be talking about?
Actually, I guess he can tell you about it later. First of all, let me thank you. Actually, words fail me to thank you enough. I just texted Amir and I said that this opportunity has been awe-inspiring, and I was really inspired by